Houdini. What a play! 47-yard touchdown run by the magical quarterback, Lamar Jackson.
Here it is. The season's on the line. Two receivers left and right. McCown takes the snap. He steps up. He's all by himself. Fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs.
The ball comes out! The ball has come out! Derek Johnson, the all-time leading tackler in the history of the Chiefs, with a touchdown for Kansas City!
Well, hello everyone. My name is Dave Ranlett, and welcome to the official Madden League 20 podcast. I am here with Tyler Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals, at least in the first file, and Mike of the Kansas City Chiefs in the first file. Hello, guys.
Salutations.
How you doing?
It's great to have you both here. Ty is going to be my co-pilot throughout this podcast for the most part. And we'll have a rotating guest each and every week. The hope and idea is to have a weekly podcast, with room for missing a week here or there if somebody takes a vacation. But we're going to have a rotation this week. We have Mike with us, who hails from Canada. It would not be right to start this podcast without representing all countries involved in this league. So, Mike, it's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
How's the weather in Canada?
Really warm today, actually. Quite humid. I thought we were going to get some fall weather in August. That hasn't really been the case. It's always humid here.
Oh, my word. We have had in New England the exact same conditions. It's just been humid. And I told my wife yesterday, it's not even just hot. It's the humidity that sucks.
Oh, I know. It's terrible.
We don't get like dry heats or anything like that up here. Do we, Ty?
Apparently not, no.
I mean, you don't know. You've never been here. I know. How's the weather in Arizona today?
Dry, hot, terrible.
What temperature are you rocking right now?
Right now it's at least put me on the spot here.
I am.
It is 111.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
Oh, yeah, like I'm looking at it like it's a muggy 84 right now.
Yeah.
So, what's that in Canadian?
I don't know.
What is that in Canadian? Oh, man.
That's hot. That's all I know.
So, where in Canada are you again, Mike? I always forget. You're on my side.
I'm in Ottawa, so I'm pretty much just north of you.
Only by a few hours.
A little known fact, I'm in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. People always think of Toronto, I think, when they think of Canada, but Ottawa is actually the capital, and it's a beautiful city.
That's amazing. Well, if you haven't heard yet, I'm really excited for the new Microsoft Flight Simulator, and so I will make sure to fly over your fine city, and maybe I'll even stream it. So maybe I'll have to get you in on that.
Yeah, would love that.
Do you have a computer, Mike?
I do. Well, not a well-defined computer.
No, so you have a computer, you don't have a rig.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Correct.
Ty just barely got a decent laptop, so I'm trying to get him more into PC gaming. So it's kind of where my heart is. I basically own an Xbox for streaming Netflix and Madden. So well, enough about us. Welcome you listener who has clicked on the link in the Discord channel to this wonderful new podcast. We hope to bring you good content and good discussion in a casual manner, but it's all about the immersion and the enjoyment of this league and the celebration of the users that we have here. We're starting this podcast at the closing of the first file. One, because I didn't think about creating a regular podcast, but at the same time, I thought it would be great now that we have a whole year with the group of people we have, everyone kind of has a better understanding of who everybody else is, except for maybe like the Niners user who we don't even know his name, but it is what it is. So yeah, we're going to start episode 1 today. We're talking about our top 16 users in the league. So after the end of the season, I had all the users in the league that wanted to submit a top 16 list. And what I mean by top 16s is not players, it's the users who ran the teams. And you were able to use whatever reasoning you wanted for your top 16. Some reasons just pure out of on-field ability, some factored in league content, some factored in how long they played in the league, if they were there.
Some out of spite.
What's that?
Some out of spite.
Yep, some out of spite. The reasons for why people ranked people where they did goes on and on and on. And some were even kind enough to share their comments and their thoughts on the league and on the users. So we will be able to share some of those with you guys. We won't pick out every comment from every user, but we'll definitely reveal some of those. And if you're curious to see everyone's individual rankings as well as our conclusions after this podcast, I will be posting on our very never used subreddit. I'll post the whole document there, so you guys can read and check up and see what people said, see how they felt about you, and you can see how we reached our rankings, which will be quite the fun discussion. You guys have anything to add to that before we get started?
I'm good. Let's get into it.
Yeah, no, I'm good to go.
Sweet. All right. Ty, would you like to reveal number 16?
All right. Drum roll, please. ... Saeed. New York Giants.
Saeed from the New York Giants makes our top 16. What do you guys think of Saeed? You think he deserves to be on this list?
I think so, definitely, as where he's placed. When he started, he was a pretty formidable user, and the big downfall for him was the run blocking changes. He wasn't able to play the same style, which ended up pulling him back. But he made a Super Bowl with a pretty good defensive unit and a great running game, despite Daniel Jones being the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he ran his blocking schemes to perfection. Definitely an experienced user. So
Advantage point. I gotta apologize to say he didn't make my list. Didn't really remember him, to be quite honest. So my apologies there. So I don't remember much from him, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, Saeed. So I mean, I think are we finishing up season 8 or season 7 right now?
I think 7.
Yeah.
7.
So I think, to be fair, I think Saeed played 4 or 5 out of those seasons before Will came into the NFC East. But the problem was, the last 2 seasons he was here, I put in quotes, he wasn't really here. He was barely playing his games, and he was very put out about the whole rule changes that we had made.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was pretty vocal about that, but he stuck it out for a while, and he was... I like Saeed. I think he belongs on this list, just for the fact that you can only make a Super Bowl so many times, and he made the second Super Bowl. And so he definitely showed that he can contend. Whether or not he was here every single season, I definitely think he belongs on the list just for showing up and playing and competing, especially early on.
Absolutely.
But Mike, I totally agree with you. It's easy to forget about him in a sense because he wasn't gone, he hasn't been gone long, but it feels like he has.
Absolutely. I would consider myself pretty involved, at least keeping up with the banter if I'm not super active in the chat. But I just couldn't place him. So. Yep.
Let's see what some other users said about Saeed here. We have from Jacques, writes, he made it to the Super Bowl. He had no wins versus Jacques, but holding the last spot I will rank because either... what does he say? He's holding the last spot in his rankings because he doesn't know the other users. He never watched them play. But if you quit mid-season, you're automatically out of the rankings, Jacques writes. But he says, Bajerick barely makes the list because I hate bad communication with scheduling, but I did like his play style. He does emulate the pro Madden style, but the skill isn't there. And he always looking to refine his game, and he likes those qualities. So he's commending his abilities on the field, but his poor communication and scheduling conflicts in the league. I think many would agree with his scheduling conflicts. I know he was a bit of a headache for Drew. But, yeah, what else we got here?
Another comment we have is, although he didn't participate during his time here, Southern Sam is familiar with him, says he's a fan, gave him a vote, even though they didn't play even at the same time. Says he's a high-character guy who brings a refreshing play style.
Oh, interesting.
So, obviously must have known each other through another league.
Yeah, Gridiron Grinders.
Had a good one. Yes.
Yes, Gridiron Grinders. Mike, you knew him from there too, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. As we're talking about it now, I'm starting to remember. So feel even worse about maybe leaving him off my list as we go through this.
I don't even know if he's in our chat anymore, as far as if he's even going to see this podcast. So I don't feel too bad. Dustin writes in about Saeed. He says, would have been higher on his list were he able to stick around a little longer. The Giants were made into one of the better CPU defenses because of the championship appearance in year 2 against the undefeated Jets. So, I mean, yeah, kind of like what I was saying. I think he deserves a spot in here just for the run he did make, which, I mean, I can't even say I made that run. So I think if he's going to make the list, yes, he should be in the lower end, but I'm glad he made it. I think that's a worthy position for him. I only played him once. I believe I defeated him. It was like a 6-3 type game. It was very defensive. But
a lot of games like that.
Yeah. I think Saeed was very cerebral, and when he decided to show up in chat, he was vocal. But I swear, he didn't have notifications on his phone.
Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure is it's consistent across all the votes and the lists that he's on. He's there in that 16th spot, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, people just kind of writ him in the end, I guess, and thought he belonged. So, yeah, you're right. It was very consistent.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you want to introduce number 15, or do you have the page in front of you?
I do have the page in front of me. So coming in at number 15, I don't know if you did this on purpose because I'm a Falcons fan, Dave, but Derek the Saints.
Ah, yes, Derek of the Saints coming in at number 15. I suppose before we continue, I should express how we made this list. As far as we have a point system that we used. Ty, do you want to elaborate on that, or do you want me to?
Well, the point system we had everyone rank 1 through 16, and unfortunately, not everybody made everybody's list. This mathematically didn't work, so we decided to, as a way to balance that, we would add 10 points to everybody that didn't make a list.
Right.
To move them further down, so the ones that had the higher numbers didn't get grouped up with people that weren't on lists at all altogether.
Yeah, so like if you were to put a user as number 1 on your user rankings, they would receive 1 point to their name. And if you put somebody at the 16th spot, you would get 16 points to your name. And so we had this running list of all the users written down. We'd add these points to their names. The fewest points would be the highest ranked player. And like Ty said, if you weren't on somebody's list, you got an automatic added 10 points. Just because, one, if you didn't make somebody's list, perhaps you should receive a penalty for that. And as Ty said, it did kind of help cycle out. You could have one guy be placed at number 1 on somebody's list, and he's on nobody else's list, and he's immediately only has 1 point and is at the top, and that becomes a problem. So you had to have that penalty for not being on a list. It works well. And so Saeed, for example, checks in at number 16 with 142 points, really echoing. We had 12 submissions of lists. So him placing 16 with 142 points makes a lot of sense. Derek edged him out by just 6 points. Derek with 136 points for number 15. Just to give you an idea how close some of these are. What do you guys think about Derek?
I I get why Derek was placed where he is, but a big part of I think people's perception of him is the division mates he's had all year. He has consistently been a great user when everyone on his team is healthy, but not being able to get over the Buccaneers has been a big obstacle for him. Even if he's played them strong all the time, they continue to edge out.
Yeah, I think he definitely is the product of a tough division consistently.
I had Derek at 6 on my list. He was definitely someone, and I think maybe it comes down to play style, but just someone I could never get a handle on. And he always had my number, and it was just I always clashed, at least as the Chiefs, against the Saints. So he just built a pretty solid team, and I was never able to get anything going against him.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, and I mean I always feel like I'm backwards on this, but I consider Derek a defensive user first before an offensive user, but he benefited from the weapons he had as the Saints. Would you guys agree, disagree?
Yes, I'd agree with that. With the acquisition of Ross, he became much more offensively focused than I think he normally is, but he still had a great impact on defense in a lot of his games.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin writes, he says, Derek, who had him at number 10, year in and year out contender in the NFC, but like you said, Ty, overshadowed by other contenders. He just never quite was able to break his ceiling. Let's see if we have anybody.
That's the curse of having a.
Yeah, Matt says here, Derek has been consistent in the NFC South. He's had to deal with two great Bucs users in Jacques and Southern Sam, who could probably hang with any user in the file. He turned John Ross into a stud. Great eye for drafted player names, too. Like Steve Kerr.
Oh, that was my favorite, Steve Kerr.
He became quite a decent little quarterback.
He was. When Derek drafted him, I immediately thought bust. And I was really impressed with what he did around him. A part of it was because he had great weapons, so you get through the growing pains the first 2 years and he'll develop. But I wouldn't have been shocked if he decided to go another route at quarterback after year one. But he stuck with it.
True. Yeah, he really did. Didn't he try to trade Breeze at one point? I feel like he did early on.
Yes. Yeah, that contract was a handicap for a while.
Yeah, and I think you probably played Derek a lot more than I did too. When I only played him once, and I think it was early on in the file, and I don't even remember who won. So I have a perception of Derek, but I don't really have an accurate reading on him. But he's been consistent. He's been with the league for a while, and he's not really a huge content creator, but he's always there, and he busts out his games, and he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was part of the other league as well, if I'm not mistaken, Dave.
Oh, he may have been.
Yeah.
He was in the league I came from beforehand. But so right. Gridiron Grinders was started by Matt, who plays with us, obviously, because he won it. Our original league where we all came from, it fell apart, and so he started that one, and I played in it for a brief moment. That's where I met you and Saeed and all that, and he may have snuck over there actually. I know guys like Rick made it over and whatnot as well. So, number 14, we have an interesting name, not a current user, but one who's returning. Number 14, we have Joe with 131 points, so 5 points ahead of Derek. What do you guys think about Joe?
Let's put him up with. Actually, don't think he made my list. Again, another user. I kind of went with more current guys. But from what I remember from Joe, I think I played him in the playoffs first or second year. We actually had a really close, high-scoring game, and the next year we played each other, and I think it was like 7-3. So a couple interesting games against him, but he was a solid player from what I remember. So I enjoyed my battles back and forth with him.
Joe is the source of some of the most frustrating Madden games that I've watched be streamed. There was that 6-3 snow game versus Matt's Jets.
The AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and that whole game was just both of them being so defensively just
careful,
structured.
Yeah.
That none of them could do anything. And there were a lot of games of his that were single-digit scores. And it was just like, someone score a freaking touchdown, please. I'm excited to see what he does when he comes back. His defense really picked up, especially when he did the defensive user lock. I always found that really interesting and something I didn't have the bravery to try.
Yeah, so Joe, let me call out Joe real quick. Joe absolutely was at least the reason why Robbie Biggs never had any playoff wins. He shut Robbie Biggs and my offense down early on in this league. Joe was kind of my kryptonite for a while. I mean, I would hang around with Matt and Jordan for the most part, but I was always stumped against Joe and his stupid cover too.
Yes.
It was just ridiculous, and he. I like Joe for a lot of reasons. I enjoy the challenge he gives me when I play against him, and I do admire his careful, to a fault defense and offensive philosophy. Like, when you're right, watching him and Matt go at it is like watching a game of checkers where nobody moves the pieces, and eventually somebody has to do something. But I like Joe for a lot of reasons. I think he's great in the chat room. I think he has a good head on his shoulders, very cerebral guy, is good for the league as far as what he brings and his kind of mindset towards what we should be. So I've always appreciated that aspect of Joe and his willingness to voice his opinion. On the field, very active user. He's just, he's got stuff to do, and so he was unable to play the whole file with us, which is unfortunate, but I'm glad he's coming back. What do we got?
Definitely.
What do we got from some other users?
Austin says one of the founding members of ML20. Joe kept the Browns respectable in the beginning. Then Dustin O jumped in and Lamar'd all over everyone's asses. Couldn't quite ever get to the prominence. Then Cleveland went back to the cellar once Baltimore and Pittsburgh were the users. It's true.
The safeties he was running in Cleveland were amazing. They were just out muscling everybody. I could talk about how I couldn't beat his defense forever. Like, it was so annoying. Let's see what else we got from other users here.
Matt says Joe left us a little early, but he took the Browns team and finally got them to win some games. His defenses were tough, and he would have loved to see him continue to develop a rivalry with Dustin O.
Yep, and Jordan, who wrote out some comments and everybody, puts Joe at 9th place and has no comment. It just says Joe. Coincidentally, he has Mike on his list too, who he had no comment for.
What? Joe, me, and Dustin were the only ones without comments.
Yep.
We're silent but deadly is what I say.
Yeah, you belong on the list. That's all Jordan has to say about that. So yeah, I think Joe definitely deserves to be on this list. We've got Joe, Derek, and Saeed here, and I think Joe belongs above those two. Derek was a more consistent user, but I think Joe had deeper runs in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, that's true. Depends what you rank it on, right? I think different people ranked it on different things.
So. It's true. I think that's what makes this interesting.
Everyone has their own opinions on how they rank, and it's interesting to see how it all comes out together.
Right. And in some, maybe somebody would make the case, hey, Saeed should be above both of these guys. He actually got to the big game and almost won it. So, there's a case to be made for all of these guys, and you could flip a lot of different names, but this is where it all shook out. All right. Ty, would you like to reveal our number 13?
All right. Number 13 with 126 points. 5 less than Joe. Adam of the Steelers.
What do you think about Adam, Mike?
His offense. I think I only played him once. Yeah, my comment there in the file or in the voting list was just, I faced him once, but it was a disaster. And I think it was when the year before, when he had Juju and who was his other receiver? It's eluding me right now.
He had at one point Odell.
Yeah, and it was just like I could not stop him. My defense was, I built it up to where I wanted it to be at the end, and I just could not stop that guy.
Right.
No matter what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you think, Ty? Did you ever play Adam?
Yes, we played one game, and it was during that season where it seemed like I couldn't do anything until I was down 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that versus him. He was a really formidable opponent. The way he was able to run with Miles Sanders was extremely impressive. And our game went to literally the last second.
Yep.
He's been a really impressive user, and he took that quarterback, Solomon.
Yep.
And made him into a top 3, top 5 guy when the Steelers were a pretty bad team when he took him up. So props to him.
Yeah, I think I had the opportunity to play Adam 2 or 3 times, and our very first game, in the last seconds of the first half, as it closed, he threw a flippin' ball out to the flat to a 39-year-old AJ Green, who stiff-armed my entire defense with his 82 speed all the way down for like a 73-yard touchdown. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that.
Oh, my word. I have never been so just disgraced. So literally, he throws, it's the end of the half, and he's playing it safe. So he takes, I don't know who his quarterback was. It was before Solomon. It's like week 13. He hucks this ball to the left side flat. The blockers clear out my corner, and then AJ Green huffs and puffs his way down the sidelines, and I have safeties and linebackers run at him, and he just stiff arms them all, and finally, Jalen Ramsey comes across the field and rams into him at the 2-yard line, and it does the animation where he tumbles, and falls into the end zone to close the half. It was, and he was 48. It was ridiculous, and so that was my introduction to Adam. I struggled with Adam. He's a great offensive and defensive user. He reminded me of a more polished Joe when I played him. And he had a wealth of play calls, especially in the passing game, but he was diligent about the running game. Another cool thing about him, too, is when he came on board, I believe he had messaged me before he joined. I got him on Reddit, and he had only ever played offline franchise before joining our league, so this is his first time into it. Yeah.
Oh. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and he was really eager to get in, and then unfortunately, he just wasn't able to finish out this file. I just feel like we got too little of Adam.
Yeah.
It was 2.5 to 3 good seasons, but that was it.
Mm-hmm. Is he joining us in the next one?
Absolutely. I talked to him last week, and he is absolutely in.
Right. And
I'd love to keep him around and have him here, because I think when he's involved, he's great to have. And he's just I don't think there's a user like him as far as what he brings to the field. He plays a different game.
Yeah. His own style.
Yeah, and a little word about Solomon. I was going to draft him, and Frank Dahlman was my second choice. So I was a little bit bitter when he took Solomon, and I had to go Dahlman. But it is what it is. I'll forgive him for that. So do you guys think he belongs at his spot?
I think that's a fair place for him. Just a part of what makes the evaluation of these guys tough is some of them have only played a certain number of seasons.
Right.
So maybe if he was here the full file, he could justify being top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But with what we saw and with what he did, I think it's really fair for him.
100%. I'm trying to see what other users say about him here.
Yeah, Justin's got him at 6. Probably based on their rivalry during his time in the league, right? So
yep.
I think some users that had that rivalry with him put him a little bit higher than maybe some others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. He was, and because of his lack of availability as far as how long he played with us, it makes sense for him to kind of be all over the board.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Adam fills out our bottom 4 at the top. So at 13 you have Adam, at 14 you have Joe, at 15 you have Derek, and at 16 you have Saeed. Now we're moving into the next set of 4. So you're in tier 3 now. We've left tier 4. We're going into the third tier of users. And at number 12 we have Lynn of the Raiders. What do you guys think about Lynn?
Lynn, first off, brought us the glory that was a Tahir Whitehead MVP. So props to that. What a time. He was always having consistent success on the edge on defense, which was really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
There were times that it seemed like he was one of the most dominant in the AFC, and also seasons where it seemed like he was fighting for a wild card spot. The inconsistency in Oakland is probably the reason why he's here at 12, but when he was on, he's one of the best players in the league.
For sure.
I would echo that. I mean, being his division rival, we had lots of games together, and I think my first game against him, I won, and my first thought was like, okay, I can win my division.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went on, I think we split almost every season 1-on-1, and our most recent game this past season, near the end of the year, was just unreal. It was a complete chess match. You know, I think we were both stressed playing each other. We knew each other so well by that point that it was just like, it was crazy, and it's sad that we never met in the playoffs. I think.
Yeah, you never did you?
No, and we were talking about that, how like we're excited for a playoff matchup, and you know, I think it came down to the last week this year.
Yep.
Had I think you beat him in week 17, Dave?
Yeah, I did.
Had he beat you, I would have played him in the first round. So.
Oh, that would have been a great close to your rivalry.
Yeah. So you ruined that, though. Thanks.
Way to go.
I'm sorry. You know, I had to secure that number 3 seed, so I didn't have to face whoever I ended up facing. Did I face you in the playoffs?
You did. Yeah.
That's right. So I wanted to play you, Mike. So think about it that way. I was greedy and wanted to play you.
You wanted your... Well, no, it wasn't a revenge game. You had already gotten your revenge. It was the rubber match at that point.
It's true. Because we had played week 1. That was a good game, by the way. That was a fantastic game. For me, anyway.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, no, I have to say I really, really, really enjoyed watching you two go at it. You guys were one of the first games when you guys would play each other, I would tune right into. I enjoyed your guys' rivalry, and I never felt like it was talked about as much as like Jordan and my rivalry or other races in the league. And you guys were consistent through the whole file, so I think it's noteworthy. Your guys' battle for the division was always like close.
Yeah, I think we were both also a little on the quieter side in the chat, so that's probably why it wasn't as like.
Yeah, it wasn't as salty and like bitter in the chat.
No, so I mean, yeah, we had a great time. I had a great time. I can't speak for him, but I'm assuming, you know, it went both ways, and it was a lot of fun playing against them. So Who knows how it'll shake out next file, but look forward to some more matchups.
Yeah, anytime I played either of you guys, you know, I was always carefully watching, but you both, to me, without knowing it, would bring up your rival in the division saying, yeah, I'm building to beat the Chiefs, or yeah, I'm working against the Raiders. So you guys were always like, it was like a gentleman's game where you're quietly picking pieces to beat the other. It was kind of fun to watch.
Yep.
Ty, did you ever play Lynn?
Yeah, I think we played once. I vaguely remember the game. I couldn't tell you what happened. Actually, no. I could. I remember Josh Jacobs would consistently get 4 yards on me all the time. And just run down that clock. So I didn't get... I remember being frustrated because I only got like a few possessions each half.
Josh Jacobs was a beast. And what was the linebacker he had? Was it Ramsey?
Ramsey,
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joseph Ramsey. He was a great player for him. And I think he had Josh Jacobs the whole file. And like every year he'd have him on the trade block.
Yeah, no one would want him because he's slow.
I know.
Like, he's a good back, but that's the reason why he wants to trade him away, you know?
Yep. Matt says Lynn quietly put together a solid outing in Oakland, a 66% win record, an MVP in Tahir Whitehead, and a Super Bowl appearance. He created a feared defender in Joseph Ramsey and a great runner in Josh Jacobs. I think that's very accurate and very on point with Lynn. He did a good job, quietly, but he did.
Yeah. Yeah, the Raiders, especially early on, were a force.
Yep.
And I think some parts of the roster kind of fell apart, but he was also, on the parts that were elite, they were elite.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. Dustin says on Lynn, although Lynn couldn't quite win the big one, the Raiders shot out of the gate, reaching the first ML20 Super Bowl representing the AFC. Lynn was able to take a team and remain respectable in the AFC while fighting the Chiefs and the CPU Chargers. We can't leave them out. So he was basically facing two real division opponents. Had a league MVP coming from defense is probably one of the most underrated achievements of the file. I absolutely agree with that. And it wasn't like some beefed up stud already.
Yeah,
it was Tahir Whitehead.
That's crazy.
Oh man, on the subject of Lynn, I will say I feel like his specialty was developing pass rushers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it
100%.
definitely seemed to be.
Excellent. All right, so we'll move on from Lynn. Mike, would you like to introduce number 11?
All right, at number 11, we have LP, the 49ers, with the 115 points. So clear 10 points of Lynn, which is quite a jump when you look at some of the other...
That's the biggest jump so far, you're right.
Yeah, so I mean, I myself, what did I write about him? I think I had him at 14, never faced him, never really got acquainted with him, I think as you alluded to earlier, Dave, but I knew the reigning Super Bowl champion had to be on the list in my opinion.
Yeah. One real thing before we move to Niners, I just remembered I have Lynn here in bold on our screen here. I just wanted to mention Lynn is our first user in this list to be a unanimous selection. So everyone had Lynn on their list. He was included on every list. So I just wanted to point that out and shout out that to Lynn. Lynn, you are well regarded by everybody. So congratulations to you. So moving on to LP and the Niners, 115 points. We still don't know this guy's name, and I'll start out right out of the gate. He is number 16 on my list for a myriad of reasons. So, if you're going to be in this league, and if you're going to play here, aside from playing your games, it'd be nice to know, anything about you. Just because I consider our league a community, and so I put him on number 16 on my personal list because he deserves to be recognized for reaching a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl last year, which is an awesome achievement in this league, and I think it needs to be regarded. I couldn't not put him on the list because of that. However, beyond the fact that he won a Super Bowl and beyond the fact that he plays his games, I know nothing else about him besides he likes to run the ball and he's a friend of Justin's. And so that's all I really can say about him. But I do feel that he belongs at number 11 on the main list because I think he could give all the users underneath him a real run for his money. What do you guys think?
Having played at least 5 games against him now, he's a dominant runner. Gave me Spence flashbacks some of the games we had.
Oh, wow.
He's able to create lanes and do it with any running back. In our last game, he had his third running back in and was getting 10, 15-yard runs on me. Definitely impressive, and it's a big part of his game. Sometimes he doesn't even throw more than 5 times. He just sticks with it.
That's serious Spence syndrome right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His defense is also locked down. Really frustrating having guys look open, and then when you press the button, you realize you got baited, and then it's an interception. I have him as number 5 in my list because he won a Super Bowl his first year, and in all of our games, he's just been better. No other way to put it.
Yeah. You didn't get a chance to play him, Mike, correct?
No, didn't play him at all. Didn't know much about him. I think we talked about one trade once very briefly.
Yep.
So
I played him once last year, and it was a close game. I knew he liked to run the ball, and for the first, I want to say 2.5 quarters, I held him down to, I felt like 20 attempts for 40 yards. And then eventually he just cracked it open and I couldn't keep up. Once he got his run game going, it was very impressive. And like you said, Ty, his defense is locked down. And so this was a year ago with Dahlman, so he had not really developed as far as I wished he would. And so Dahlman fell apart under the pressure and he was starting to run all over. But I want to say it was 21-21 in the first half, and it was a close game, and then I kept up with it, and then he just kind of broke free. And it seems like you struggled with that too. Eventually, he'd bust out the big run.
Yep. Yeah, it's coming when in his games. I don't think I've seen, at least any of the ones I've watched, where he gets less than 100 yards rushing ever.
Yeah, I mean, and so he places 11th on our list. And unfortunately, we can look at other people's comments. I don't have much more on him.
Dustin, this is exciting, Dave. He's got Brendan down beside him, so I guess that's his name?
Brendan is a separate user.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he must have him in a cluster.
Okay. Oh, right. I see it there now. He's talking about LP later in his... Okay.
Yep.
My mistake.
Oh, that's okay. Let's see, who else has him on their list that we can talk about here? Any descriptions?
Doesn't seem to be much.
Jordan says, won a Super Bowl, but I don't know who it is, but he beat Matt. I think that sums him up pretty well.
Yeah.
I think that's echoed elsewhere. Matt says gotta include him here at number 12, but don't even know his name. Has a Super Bowl ring, but way too quiet to be a top member. Best running game I've seen in a while, though.
Yep. I mean, we would be remiss to not mention that he's probably Justin.
I still believe.
I mean, you can't bring up LP and not get that joke in there somewhere. I mean, that's just, it's almost expected now. So we can move on from him. Ty, would you like to introduce number 10?
All right, at number 10, we have Southern Sam of the Buccaneers with 110 points.
5 points above LP. Southern Sam, as we are recording this, did he just beat Cody to go to the Super Bowl?
I haven't been checking with that.
I believe he just beat Cody in the NFC Championship, and he is on his way to his first Super Bowl. He's had a hell of a run. Who did he beat LP before beating Cody?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So he has just defeated two representatives of the NFC in the Super Bowl on his way to either face the Jets or the Ravens. So placing here at number 10, that's a hell of a little run here late in the file. I'm impressed.
Oh yeah. He inherited a great team, but it also can't be understated with the moves he made after that to fit more to his play style. How that really benefited him.
Yeah.
In the game he just had with the 49ers, it was 30 seconds left where Kittle got a touchdown, and he's down by 3. And against 49ers defense, which we just talked about, he was able to get downfield and win the game on a run. And that's one hell of a feat to do in the playoffs against a user like that, and not just go for the tie, but go for the win.
Yeah, Mike, you know Southern Sam from Gridiron as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was the Vikings over there. So we definitely had some couple matchups there, and then seeing him here was pretty cool. We only played once in this file, but as you alluded to earlier, he turned that roster, wouldn't say turned it around, but fitted it to his style. Played a very great defensive game. When I played him, I think the final was 20-12, and we both played each other really tight. It was a great game. So yeah, a solid user. Had him 12 on my list.
Yeah, my experience playing him is not much. I knew him and really enjoyed talking with him back when he was in Gridiron Grinders. And so for a while, I was actually talking about Matt, trying to figure out how I could squeeze him into this league, because I really liked him over in Gridiron, and he was actually kind of a co-commissioner over there. So I got to experience his qualities as far as his leader goes. And just his personality, and I thought he was a great guy, and I thought he belonged with us. But beyond that, I have not actually played him that much, but I'm quietly impressed now that I'm watching this run he's had. I unfortunately didn't even put him on my list because I just don't know him that well. But hell of a run he's making, and I think you're right. To your point, Ty, he deserves to be above Niners, especially after this most recent win in the playoffs here.
Yeah, I'm looking through, and it seems like people that do have him on his list have him pretty fairly rated, but it does seem that he maybe got overlooked by, past Buccaneers.
Yeah, and he's also a fairly recent user here.
Yeah.
I believe he came in right after Jacques and took that team. Unless, because Brendan had the 49ers.
Yeah.
So he replaced Jacques as the Bucks. That's right. Do you guys have any more on Sam, or is just kind of too early to tell, but feel like he belongs where he is?
Oh, he definitely belongs.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, well, we will be... What's that?
Who's he playing in the Super Bowl?
Prediction time. I think he plays the Jets.
I'm going to say Ravens, underdogs.
Ravens, I mean, spoiler alert, Dustin is on this list. I mean, Dustin is a two-time Super Bowl representative. I definitely think he could win this, but I don't know. I just played Justin. I think Justin is here to prove a point after losing last year.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to go Jets. I think they'll win that.
Interesting. So I'll announce number 9 here. We're moving on from number 10, which means we are arriving at the top of the third tier. So we've had our fourth tier. We're arriving at the top of the third tier. And at number 9, we have Jordan Swanson with 103 points, 7 points above Southern Sam. He comes in at number 9. What do you guys think about Jordan before I talk about him?
When Jordan goes to a restaurant, and a fancy restaurant, and the waiter asks, "Would you like a salad with that?" Jordan says, "I'll pass."
I get the joke.
He gets it. It was really impressive what he was able to do with Drew Lock after Andrew Luck, and personally, I loved what he was able to do with user lock. Understand the controversy, but I think it was really cool of him to try new ways to bring danger to that passing offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, did you get to play him as much?
I think we played year 1 in the playoffs, and I think that was where I don't know if I got 2 wins in the playoffs or just the 1, but I think I beat him in the wild card round once.
Oh wow!
Way back when. I think it was year 1. It was a good back and forth game. So I think that was my only experience against him, unless I'm forgetting a game. But no, I remember having some close games with him.
Yeah, him and I have been rivals for a long time, dating way back to when we first played in our first league. And Mike, just to give you the background, the Jags-Colts matchup is about as old as I've been playing Madden, between him and I, because I've always loved the Jags, and for whatever reason, he likes Luck and the Colts, and he kind of just went that way. And I've played him so much, I watch him eviscerate other really good defensive users, and it frustrates me because I've understood how to play him, but even when I understand how to play him, the guy can still torch me and just explode. And I also need to mention that this year, in this file, I watched him improve defensively, and I think he's become such a well-rounded user. I mean, he's got a Super Bowl ring for a reason. I think he's just gotten to be so cerebral as far as, I wouldn't say cerebral, I'd say complete as far as his skill set. He's had a couple deep runs, and he got a ring, and he dominated with whatever quarterback he had. I mean, I think Drew Lock was, at 70 when he inherited him, when he signed him and let Andrew Luck hit free agency?
Yeah, he was in low 70s.
And I mean, you look at what he became. I've seen users struggle against the CPU Colts since Swan left.
I almost lost to them.
Yeah, they're very good. And he's if there was a quarterback wizard in this league, I would say it's Jordan. He can turn crap into great.
Like you were saying earlier, he having taken a long break, he started off kind of rusty, but I think that kind of forced him to take defense more seriously.
Yep.
And his usering as a linebacker was a lot better than I ever remember it being in any of the other years that we did it before.
Agreed. He made Okereke a monster in the middle. If you don't know who Okereke is, you need to go look up Pat McAfee's announcement of that draft pick for the Indianapolis Colts. I love playing Jordan. The thing about Jordan that I will say is I think he's one of those people that can compete with any user, but he can also lose to any user. He's really the jack of all trades. You don't know what you're going to get with him, but it's going to be passing. And he's gonna live by the passing game, and I think that's to his credit and to his defeat.
And then when he does run, it's a fullback run that you never see coming.
Oh yeah, 100%. The run game, he could utilize it so much more because nobody expects it, and so he really never runs. And so when he does get those 2 runs in the game, they literally come out of nowhere, and it's either the game's already done and he has to pick a different kind of play, or he actually is getting that key third down to win the game. Like, it's just nuts. So Jordan Swanson, number 9. Let's see what some other users have to say about him. What do you see, Mike? Anything good?
Yeah, some high praise from Matt. Has him at 6. Says Swam got his ring. He revolutionized the game. Consistently put a hurting on my Jet squad. Great guy to have around the chat. Drew Lock turned into a monster. Would have loved to see a focused Swan in the AFC and what he could have built. At first glance, you think it's all offense, but his defense was beyond solid. I think that echoes what you guys just said and what you described. And I would say even in my experience, I think our first game, he wasn't quite there defensively, and I think that's why I probably won it. Mm-hmm. But then he won a Super Bowl at a high level, not really knowing him was kind of surprised me, to be honest. But hearing how he kind of turned his defense around, I think that makes sense.
Absolutely. Jacques says Jordan was a Super Bowl champion, changed the league with the introduction and the effectiveness of the user lock. And anytime you can change the game, respect. And I think that's true. Jordan was one of the, I would say, several innovators in this league as far as bringing new ideas, new concepts, and definitely their own unique strategy to the game. And I think that's to his credit. And I believe number 9 is a good place for him based on where he ranks above these other users. I think that's a good spot.
I don't know. I think he should be above who is at number 8?
Who's at number 8? Did I put him at number 8? Let's see, where did I put him?
6.
I put him in my rankings, he's number 6, so definitely higher than 9. But hey, it's what the users have said. It's what he gets. We'll move on to the next user. I don't have much to say about this guy. At number 8, we have myself with 101 points, and one of the closest as far as progression. Swan comes in at 103, and then I'm at 101. And I will let you guys do the talking because it feels really conceited and selfish to talk about myself any more than I already am.
Oh, I understand. Well, I'll start. Dave, I was very, very impressed with Teal Curtain that you created.
Oh,
now, it did have its games to where it got exposed. That happened. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, your defense was a cornerstone of the Jaguars. I'll say it one last time. Quarterback. The Achilles heel of this team. A lot of it wasn't your fault. The guys just didn't follow you in the draft. Mm-hmm. But the passing game had to have been the biggest thing holding you back. And I'm impressed to see if you get a not Robbie Biggs next file.
Yeah.
To terrorize us all with.
I would agree with that comment. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, much the same, Dave. Your defense was riddled. I remember every time lining up, all you would see is the little superstar X factors over there on the defensive side of the ball, and it's definitely intimidating. But I think we both had a couple defensive battles, but we also had some high-scoring games where I did maybe expose your defense a little bit, as Ty said. I think it happened from time to time. But yeah, there's a lot of fun playing you, and I think you're in a good spot in this list. I don't think there was too much favoritism because you're the commissioner. You do a great job at that, but I don't think that's what this list is about. I think you're in a perfect spot.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I deserve. When I first made my list in my head before I'd written it down, I had myself somewhere in the middle, and I ended up putting myself at number 10, just because there's some users I struggled against. There's some users that achieved more. I felt like I was always in contention, and I've always just, as far as in my head, I like to build a strong defense almost to a fault at the cost of adding offensive talent. And if I can run the ball, I'll just get by with that. But yeah, Jordan, no, absolutely, or Ty, excuse me. Absolutely, quarterback was the struggle there. I really tried to force Robbie Biggs to be something he wasn't. And Dahlman, I really liked. He was just a slow starter, so we really didn't get to see him blossom until it was about a season or two too late. And my head, as far as in the passing game too, I'm not the best passer. That's why I lean run anyway. But I learned more about the passing game this file, so hopefully that translates in the future. But I enjoyed that Jags team, and it was fun to build. It was fun to acquire all those linebackers to just make that front seven fearsome. But I was happy with what I achieved. It was nice to win some division championships against guys like Jordan and Matt, who are both users I really regard as talented. So thank you guys for your comments.
You're welcome.
We can go ahead and read a couple here. Southern Sam says, our fearless leader in more ways than just head commissioner. Dave is the heart of the league who keeps the blood pumping and provides consistent content. Also, a refreshing offensive philosophy from what I have seen. Regarding that, Sam, I would never consider my offensive philosophy as refreshing unless you mean boring, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, Dustin says Jacksonville was always a tough out in this file. Dave always made sure the defense was ready to rock. Offense may have been another story, as the QB situation just couldn't quite get it right until the end here with Dahlman. Best of luck against the Jets in the playoffs. Sorry. Having to go toe-to-toe with Swan twice a year, only to have to face Matt twice a year. Once Swan retired, the Jags never really lost their grit, making the playoffs every season of the file. That's an impressive feat, especially, I'd say, in that AFC.
Yeah,
that's actually incorrect.
I did miss it one year because of you.
Exactly.
Actually,
as I said it.
Actually, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think I missed 2 out of the 7. I believe year 2, Jordan knocked me out, and like you or Lynn edged out me in the wild card as well because you had beaten me earlier in the year. And so I think I missed 2 of the 7 years. So I think that little stat is incorrect.
Okay.
But hey, I'm gritty. I'll take that.
We'll retract that from the record.
Yeah, retract that from the record, please. Also, I am the next user that got a unanimous vote. I think just because I run the thing, I get love points for that, and I don't necessarily think I had to make everybody's list, but thank you anyway. We'll move on to number 7. Personal favorite.
That's done with the second tier now.
Oh, you're right. We are moving off. Where are we? We're in the second tier now as well, right?
From 8 to 7. Yeah.
Yep. So we're moving into a higher tier here. Number 7, with a huge jump in points from 101 to me to 76. We have Tyler Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals.
Woo!
I personally had Ty at number 8 on my list, but I will absolutely give him 7 if he wants it. And before we go on with him, I will also mention that Ty was nearly a unanimous vote on everybody's list, except Ty excluded himself. So credit to him to that. I have him here as unanimous because he did not have to be that humble. So we will say Ty is our 3rd unanimous vote with 76 points, taking a 25-point leap from 7 and 8. Ty is our 7th overall in the top 16.
What y'all got to say about?
What do you got, Mike?
Ty, you were number 2 on my list.
I was flattered when I saw that.
How I did my list was kind of like, at least for the beginning portion, was who don't I want to play? And I remember when I played you, I think it was only once. Your offense was astounding, and I just had no idea what you were doing, and I could not figure it out for the life of me. So you were definitely someone I didn't want to play if I were to pick up the Xbox and go play right now. So kudos to you and your gameplay. We haven't met too much, but I enjoyed playing you with some wicked play calling and just could not stop you.
Thanks, man.
I have had the benefit. We played twice this file, I believe, Ty, and the first time you had me pretty well, and I know you enough. Unfortunately, we're always cross conference, so we never play each other that much.
Yeah.
But I do know that you've always run a very you're offensive minded before defense, and your offense is always going to score points, and it's going to come from ways you don't expect. So I think what you do a great job at is keeping every other user on their toes and succeeding regardless of, hey, we're prepared for the reverse, hey, we're prepared for the screen, hey, we're prepared for the RPO, and yet I know you create these crazy playlists or playbooks that have so many varieties of the same thing and give you so much flexibility and options. And then you'll utilize crazy players. Like, didn't you have Taysom Hill this file at one point? Yeah. Jordan here calls you revolutionary, just like himself, I would argue. I think you two bring the most interesting offenses to the game. I wish we played more, but I've always enjoyed playing you, and I feel like I've kind of run a stiff defense, and you kind of run a very unique, aggressive offense, and that was when we clashed, it was a fun time. And I'd also say that this file, you also greatly improved your defense, really completing yourself or rounding yourself out as a top user. I mean, you're number 7, and I'd say if you're in the top 10, you're in a good place. I mean, if you make this list at all, you're in a good place. But your defense really rounded your game out, rounded your team out. Unfortunately, you just were never able to get to the big game. And I think that was probably the only knock on your time in the file. You had a great team. You won a lot of divisions. And you had a great offense. And I would give you good credit for that.
Well, thank you for the kind words. When I went into it this year, especially with the Cardinals being, Cliff Kingsbury is the coach, the Madden added a bunch of new RPOs and options, and then having Kyler Murray as the quarterback, and then also the team being pretty poorly rated, I went into it going, I'm going to do something different.
Right.
I'm going to really embrace the whole air raid college offense, and if that means I win 4 games a year, that's what that means. And the first season was awful. I mean, I had the first pick. I was a top 5 pick, and that was me trying. A lot of those RPOs and options, the timing and being able to read the defense, that took a lot of work. But I was pretty happy with how it all turned out. Yeah,
I know that you spent a lot of time in practice working on all those plays.
Yes, I have some plays that I've probably run like dozens of times in there, just against different defenses, seeing, all right, who moves where, what means what. And a lot of times it paid off, and sometimes, it would result in that costly turnover. But it was probably my favorite file that I've been, just success-wise and being able to do things that I usually wouldn't be able to do.
100% fun to watch. If you guys don't mind carrying on the conversation, maybe reading a couple of user comments, I'm just going to step away for like a second.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, looking at what Jack said here, had you at 7. The reason #beatbyty was trending on Twitter, I guess, caused Jack a perfect season. Annoying to play against because his enforcer takes 0 skill and he's still stulty as fuck about it. Built a really good team. Always in the conversation come playoff time.
Yeah, that rivalry with him was fun. I learned a lot from him. He was a good user, and he's the biggest obstacle for me getting to that Super Bowl.
We talking about Jacques?
says that I arguably had the highest level of offensive originality in the league. I don't hesitate to switch from vanilla to chocolate by getting everyone involved.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment on you. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Jordan says, I love Ty, great team builder, but too much emphasis on being revolutionary can affect the focus on the goal. Interesting comment.
When I read that comment, I can't disagree with it. I mean, I think it's a good point. I think maybe you would get almost too cute, and it cost you a championship.
Oh yeah, it absolutely would. It cost us our game.
Yeah,
quarterback run, fumble 6.
Yeah, man, that was a fun game, though. I mean, you almost had it still in the end zone after all those tips. I'll always remember that game. That was a great game. All right.
Andy Isabella doesn't know where the end zone ends.
We will move on to number 6 now. Mike, would you like to introduce this user?
Yeah, number 6, beating Ty by a hefty 1 point, is Jack the Buccaneers.
Jacques of the Buccaneers, 75 points for Jacques, ranking at number 6. Now, I have a lot to say about Jacques. He was on my list, number 1. What do you guys think about Jacques first?
So I had Jacques at 15, and that was more because my list was, again, formed of more current users. Mm-hmm. So he slid on based on my experience with him when he was around. We faced a couple times, and he always killed me. I think as Ty said, he's kind of a measuring stick and gave him some trouble too in the NFC. So he was a solid user, and I know he made a name for himself around here.
Yeah, he was one of the most frustrating, but also one of the most, I guess, influential users that I faced because he was able to do things that made me go, I want to do that. I want to be able to do it the way he's doing. He had I don't want to say a vanilla defense, but a defense that did the same thing a lot and did it well. But his ability to run the ball with Ronald Jones and his ability to know exactly when the guy with a deep route should be thrown to and how to get that contested catch was amazing to watch and frustrating to play against because 50-50 balls were 80-20 balls in his favor.
That's a good point. I only played Jacques once, and it was a good close game until he eventually was able to exploit my bad offense and take the win. But I really have a lot of good things to say about Jacques. The reason why he was number 1 on my list, one, he's a championship winner. He deservedly so. He went and took the Buccaneers all the way up with what was the running back's name? Jones that he had?
Yeah, Ronald Jones.
Ronald Jones. He killed it with him, and coupled with Mike Evans. And I think we saw his Super Bowl against the Ravens. The biggest deficit between all the Super Bowls, 42-7 over the Ravens. So he dominated when he played the game, but while he dominated during his time here and played great ball, he was also a huge contributor as far as he was there to write power rankings. He was there to contribute. After he played against me, he would message me talking about our game, pointing out ways I could improve, and he would even do that for me when he'd watch my streams during games I'd win or lose, saying, hey, watch out for this, or hey, look out for that. So what I really liked about Jacques, and I credit to him, is I'm glad he's a part of our community. I feel like he really cares about this league, and he cares about the other users here, and he plays really good ball and understands the game. So I value him highly, and I think I think it's a shame that he's number 6 and deserves to be higher in the list, but that is what it is. I think he's a great user. I think he's a great guy. And congratulations on getting a new house as well.
Yeah, I have him in the top 3 for me, and the only reason he's not number 1 is because he didn't have longevity in the league. If he was to be here the whole file, he most likely would have been number 1 for me. But as you were saying, one thing that is really good about him is he wants a challenge. He's a good enough player that he's really wants people to get to him, but he has no problem sharing knowledge and helping out people that can't quite compete to his level. And that's a really respectable thing, to be able to share knowledge when a lot of people kind of just want to keep every secret they know or every little trick to themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, he spreads the wealth. Dustin writes about Jacques, taking a Bucks team that was lightly seasoned and turned it into a freaking monster. The deal still gives me nightmares. All the linebackers, many of whom still roam the sideline for Southern Sam this postseason. Ronald Jones spinning here, hurdling there. Bye-bye, Ronald. It goes without saying that Drew is going to have issues being ranked below Jacques, especially given the longevity of Dallas' supremacy in the NFC East compared to New Orleans, also faking some cake in the NFC South. But at the end of the day, Tampa has a Super Bowl win and Dallas does not. So he's comparing Jacques to Drew a little bit here in his list, and says the great divider between a guy like Drew and a guy like Jacques is Jacques bringing home the trophy.
And that's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal every year.
Let's see, any other comments here?
Yeah, Matt says Jacques would be higher, but the longevity isn't there. Roster he built in Tampa was stacked, and he was a great player on the field too. Dominating 42-7 win in his Super Bowl appearance. If he'd stayed another season or two, I think he would have dominated the NFC by far.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did a great job, and I think you're right. The one knock on him is his longevity. Had he been here longer, you're right. You're talking guaranteed top 3 spot in the top 16. It was just too little, too late, I guess. Not enough time with him here, but would absolutely love to get him in the future. I'm going to step away one more second. If you guys would like to introduce number 5, I'll be right there.
All right. At number 5, 70 points, we have Justin, the Jets.
Yeah,
Mike,
Justin,
what's your opinion on Justin?
he's number 1 on my list. He is the number 1 user right now that I think he's the best player in the file, at least that I've played against. Could not get a read on him, could not stop his offense. His defense is phenomenal. Great all-around game. Tried to stay competitive with him, but I just could not. So he made number 1 on my list, and I think he deserves to be in the top 5.
I have him as number 1 on mine as well. We played one game, I believe, last season, and his running game, everybody knows about that. No one needs to talk about the things he does with Gibson. What really impresses me is he plays a defense that's very close to the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm. He does.
But despite that, it feels impossible to beat him over top. And
I
don't know how much of that is personnel. I don't know how much of that is scheme or a mix of both. But he's able to play to the line without having the weaknesses that doing that usually does. In our game, I had figured like, oh, okay, they're playing the line. I've got these speedsters, they'll just get by. But they'd get pressed. The safeties would drop back into the perfect spot where the route's going to go. Defensively, it's amazing to watch, and I make sure to watch his streams, the games that he's in, just to see if there's anything that I can learn from him.
Yeah, that's well said. I think, his scheme was hard to read, and when he's close to the line of scrimmage, exactly that. You think, maybe you've got an opportunity to beat him deep, or to, expose him maybe the outside of the field, but he always seemed to have it covered, or he would know what you're going to call. And it was just for me, I just could not. I had a pretty good offense this last season here, and I could not get anything going on him still.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with Justin recently, watching him absolutely destroy my defense with his run game. He reminds me, from what I've seen from LP, he's very similar to the Niners user as far as play style. He likes to run the ball first and foremost, and he will keep doing it until he gets his run. But very, very solid user, very good on defense, very good on offense. It's hard to find a real knock in his game. Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, as far as he's very complete. He would look at my defense, read the coverage, change the play to counter it, and then exploit the weakness, and he was gifted with a very good roster built by Matt, I think Matt is one of the best roster builders in the league, and so he really inherited a strong team. Super Bowl winner. Is he a Super Bowl winner? Am I incorrect in that? Has he not won yet? He has not won one yet.
I don't believe so.
I don't think so, no.
I think a lot of AFC championships.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had to sim one playoff game. I could be wrong, but
I think you're right on that. Yeah. Justin, I think Justin ranked number 5 on my list, just where he's placed here. I think he is I think everyone can see the skill and talent that is there. It's just, I guess he doesn't have the ring yet, so he doesn't belong there, but I think he could beat anybody in this league. I would have Jacques higher than him personally, but that's where the rankings stand. And I think in his time here, he has utilized the team that's been given to him very efficiently. I mean, we can't talk about Justin without bringing up Gibson, who's just a monster.
Yeah. Everyone in the league passed on, by the way.
It's true. You took Ware, I took Hoover. Was that the same year?
No, it was the year after.
Oh, well, Ty, you and I could argue we didn't need him then.
We didn't need him, but I was trying for him.
Right. Southern Sam writes, the only user here that I have a losing record against, although I hear he came into a strong roster, he is the only user that I have felt I was truly outplayed by when faced off. He is top 3 in the AFC at very least, in his opinion.
Yeah, a fair assessment. I think he was always there in the playoffs, right? And
yep.
He's never got that ring, but he's just always been competitive. And as Tyler and I were saying, like, you can't get a read on his game, and he seems to always know what your next move is before you do.
100%. I think Matt sums it up nice. He says it takes a great Jets team and kept it going. Very talented player. As of the time of this writing, he doesn't have a Super Bowl appearance or a ring, but that may change. I can't put him in my top 10, though. Just a bit too quiet in the chat. Also, he is the 49ers. Stick skills, only he is a top 5 player. Has some late postseason losses. So I think that's a pretty good consensus on Justin. Great user. Doesn't have the ring yet. Could be more active in the chat, but is more active than LP. So there you go. Should we move into our top tier now, guys? Our top 4 users?
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right. Number 4. Our 4th consecutive user. We had Lynn, myself, Ty, and now Drew, who is in everybody's list. Number 4 is Drew, as I just said. Drew with 62 points, 8 points higher than Justin. Talk about Drew, guys.
Drew.
Fight.
Yeah.
Drew and I have had, I think, I wouldn't know if I'd call it a rivalry, but if you'll remember, we had a bit of a beef early on in the file. I think that's since been resolved when he said my games didn't matter because I wasn't in the playoffs. So that was a fun
I forgot about that.
So, and then, I mean, you look 2 seasons later, we made a blockbuster trade where I reshaped my defense.
Yep.
No, Drew's a great guy. I've enjoyed playing against him. I think I've got a couple wins against them and then some losses later in the file. Mm-hmm. Solid player, number 4 on my list. He gave me fits with that safety. Just could not, even someone's wide open.
Bias.
Oh, man. Comes across the field 20 yards out of nowhere.
Yep.
Breaks it up.
And jumps for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ty, what do you think about Drew?
Well, I had the pleasure of playing Drew more than anybody else in this league, partly because we faced off in the playoffs a lot, and also we were preseason partners.
Yeah.
So I got to see a lot of how he developed and what he did with his team, and he got to see the same with me. Mm-hmm. It was a really fun rivalry between us because it felt like every game it was just which offense would be able to outperform the other one and which defense would be able to get those key turnovers. The things he was able to do with bias were no other way to put than like legendary. He's already in the top 10 of career interceptions, and the guy's like 25 years old.
Oh yeah, he's just been ridiculous.
It was insane how good and consistently he was able to break up passes and get interceptions with him, to the point where you go, oh, no way, no way can Bias do this. The wide receivers got 5 yards on him, and somehow he's right there with the jump catch that just makes you want to throw your controller at the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I only played Drew once. He was. We just never matched up. I played him once in the rotation. I think when we started the file, the Jags must have played the Cowboys like the previous season. So I only saw him once in the 7 years. And he beat me. That was before he had Tyreek. I believe it was just DK Metcalf and Amari Cooper at that point, or something like that combination. And he beat me. I think Drew being at number 4 is a bit too high for somebody that only lost a Super Bowl and never won one. So my knock on him is he didn't have the ring, whereas a guy like Jacques, 2 spots underneath him, has one. But I think he great roster builder. With my time with Drew, easily one of the best rosters he's ever built as far as being a user in the league.
Yeah, I think a big part for his ranking is because even though a certain bird team was his kryptonite in the postseason, he left an impression with a lot of the people that he played. Yeah, and I think that's why he's in the top 4, and I think he deserves it, because even though he doesn't have the ring, every game he was a threat. Every game you were sweating because of the wide receivers or the running backs or the DBs he had, to where it was just waiting for that big play to happen.
Yeah.
And
you had to be aware of it.
It would come. So I think he really stepped up this year when it comes to Madden, and I think he deserves top 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I agree. And when you look at that roster building, I just remembered, Ty, he snaked Tyreek from you. You had put a great offer on the table. And then I was just about to accept it, and Drew came back with that crazy offer of Allen Lawrence and a first-round pick.
I was like the third wheel in that trade, I swear.
You were.
I regret it. I actually messaged Drew right when you were about to accept, and I told him, you're not going to beat me. And he took that as a challenge, and that's when he gave you that offer.
That's incredible. Drew was a great user here. I just felt like he never got it done. He built a great team. I think I told Ty my opinion of Drew was similar to me on the flip. I was all defense with a couple sparks on offense, and I felt like he was all offense with a couple flashes on the defense. He was the reason that Dallas Terry was a thing and Eugene Bias, but I felt like he just had so many offensive pieces, and they were all quality, and they were all expensive, but they were good. And so for him at number 4, I think is a bit high for him based on the fact that he never got a ring. But I think everything else about him, his content in the league, his availability to play games, the fact that him and Dustin were always there to push advance was great. I like Drew a lot, and I think that he built a great team, and I think he has something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm going to have to step away real quick if you guys want to reveal number 3. I should be back in a few minutes. Just some kid trouble.
All right. At number 3, we have, with 60 points, Cody and the Chicago Bears. Cody started off just running the first year. I don't think any of us knew Khalil Mack would have quite the impact that he did, but seeing the things he was able to do with that defense, and then Tariq Cohen on offense, he has been consistently one of the best and top users.
Yeah, I would agree. He's always there in the NFC. I had a number 8 on my list, just mainly because I didn't play him too many times. But I think he beat me most times we played, and he always had a solid team, solid defense. As you said, Mac would just tear up the edge and wreak havoc all day. And then Tariq Cohen's just one of those perennial video game players that are great with that speed.
Making people look silly with those jukes.
Exactly. So yeah, he had a solid team, solid guy, fellow Canadian as well. So give him a shout out there.
Yeah, Cody, in the beginning, that defense was a scary unit with Khalil Mack up front, and then it was Kendall Fuller, Kyle Fuller, one of those Fullers,
Yeah.
and then Eddie Jackson in the backfield. I think the biggest thing that the biggest regret that I think he will have is trading him away, because that double safety duo or that double DB duo was something I know in our games it felt like anywhere that I wanted to throw, at least one of them was there. And even though he was still a dominant defensive user then, that kind of opened up a hole that made it harder for him to repeat what he did the first year.
Yeah, exactly. When you got both those like perennially solid safeties, it just shuts so many things down from the offense. So like you can't do anything. So you have to kind of nickel and dime your way to it, and then if you get behind against them, like it's game over.
Southern Sam says about him, he brings necessary enthusiasm to the league. What he finds impressive is that he has developed and done pretty well with the original Bears roster without too many additions. And that's another good point is Cody, he brings in a few big names here and there, but he's not too much of a mover unless it's something that is absolutely necessary for cap-wise. He kept a lot of the core Bears there, and even when other people would consider letting go of them early to get some value out of them before they regress.
He just kind of worked with what he had, and I think he built a solid roster while keeping that kind of original framework in place. Matt says Cody hit the ground running with the Bears, winning the inaugural Super Bowl over the great Raiders team year one. Khalil Mack was a monster, upgraded at QB with Zach Chandler and turned him into a top 5 QB. Allen Robinson, low-key the best wide receiver. Controversial Super Bowl loss season 3, but Cody was consistent through the file. May have underestimated the impact of trading Chandler, but he made moves and kept winning. Can't knock it.
Yeah, Dustin of the Dolphins says whether it's Trubisky, Chandler, or Presley taking snaps, Cody always makes sure to look after the signal caller with supporting cast members, including AR-12, Cohen, and anyone on the Bears defense, and proved to much of the league that a quarterback is the only position to worry about for a championship roster, which is very true. While Zach Chandler became elite, that wasn't the source of much of his success. It was the way he was able to get Cohen the open lanes, get Robinson on one-on-one situation, and then force offenses to take that risky deep throw for him to pick off.
Exactly.
All right. Looks like
move on to number 2.
Still occupied, so let's do it. Do you want to announce number 2 for us?
Yeah, number 2, 49 points, 11 points clear of Cody. Dustin, the Ravens. What are your thoughts on Dustin?
Lamar Jackson. But seriously, to say that would be to undersell what he actually accomplished there. While Lamar and Marquise were certainly great pieces, it takes a lot more than just having those two guys than to have the success that he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he built a solid all-around team as well. And his offense's play calling was pretty good. I could not get a good read on him. Played some competitive games with him and some tight ones. Also some other ones where he just blew me out of the water. But yeah, he's a great user. Built a solid team. Lamar, as you said, when he gets going, he gets going. And then Marquise, if you just leave him in single coverage, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very impressive run that he was able to do. And to not only get the 4 MVPs with Lamar, but to part of getting that MVP is keeping him healthy for the year, which was another thing that he really prioritized. Is while Jackson was able to be a good weapon with his legs, he rarely put him in those situations that others would try to and risk getting that long-term injury. So he not only made the most out of the players that he had, but he also made sure to the best of his ability that they'd be there when games mattered.
I'm back. Sorry, guys.
That's
All
all
good.
right.
Where are we
The
at?
Ravens, too.
Where are we?
Ravens, number 2.
Oh, Ravens, number 2. Excellent. Sorry about that. We had a bit of a crisis here.
No worries.
Have we just introduced him, or are we well into talk about the Ravens?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're into it. So.
Oh,
whatever your
perfect.
opinion.
Yeah, no, I just have to say Dustin was the one user that I always would miss field goals and extra points against. For whatever reason, I had a superstar kicker who would nail everything, but the second I'd play the Ravens and needed any point I could to keep up with Marquise Brown and Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and all the weapons and Dennis Pitta later in the file, I would always miss kicks to the point of missing one in the playoffs and losing a playoff game against him. We would always have close games and they'd be decided by like 1 or 2 points, and it was frustrating, but I have to give him so much credit. He's done so much with that Ravens team and has had how many Hall of Fame MVP awards and 2 Super Bowl appearances. One was an ugly blowout, but no shame in that. You got there and you competed, and then you got back the following year to beat the Cowboys, his brother in arms, Drew, for Super Bowl championship. So tons of credit to Dustin and what he did with that team. Also, he's great in the chat.
Oh, absolutely.
He took the torch from Rut and advanced and made sure that we always advanced on time. He was great about checking games, and it's great to have him in the file. And he's got a ring, and I always felt he was always a point for me as far as if he could win a Super Bowl, maybe someday I could too, because we always played each other close, and I felt like we matched up well offensively and defensively. Lamar Jackson is fast.
Yeah, it was always fun to watch him. Partly because of the team and partly because of the way he played. He also would defensively make some guys that I don't know if they're people he drafted or if they were just nobodies that he developed.
Mm-hmm.
But there'd be people on that defense where I'm like, I've never heard that name before, and that guy has 3 interceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Dustin G of the Dolphins writes, the ranking of Dustin comes down to whether or not you want to handicap him for having Lamar. While this is somewhat true, I pose to you that other teams with quarterbacks having similar ridiculous attributes, and he references Chandler and Mahomes, were not constantly winning MVPs and leading their teams to victory. If my history playing against this user and team have taught me anything, is that Lamar or no, sheer ability to use our defensive players would still land this team in the Super Bowl at least one of the seasons we have played here in ML20. But he has a Super Bowl win and nearly 3 appearances and more MVPs than many NFL players can probably count. And I think that's a good assessment of our number 2 here on the list for Dustin O.
Yeah, I would agree. And Matt says Dustin, 4 MVPs for Lamar, 1 Super Bowl ring, 2 Super Bowl appearances. Ravens and Dustin proved it on the field. He's active in the chat, drafted and developed quite well. Think he's a consensus top 3 player, but I'll put him as my top player because he presents a good package all around, and I think that's really well said.
Yeah.
I think he was great on the field, great at team building, great in the chat, and just a great league member. So,
yeah,
summary.
That's awesome. So that tops off our 15 users, and we have 1 left. And this name might surprise you.
Right.
I mean, I didn't expect Dana to get this high.
Yeah.
No, coming in at number 1, we have Matt with 44 points, beating Dustin by 5 to be our number 1 player in the top 16. What do you guys have to say about Matt, and do you think he deserves the spot?
For Matt, I think he does. It was tough for me to decide number 1 on a lot of things, and I really considered him. The most impressive part isn't just what he did with the Jets, but the fact that he was able to take the Oilers team and take it to a Super Bowl in the first year by having to put together a bunch of vets and be really crafty with some trades and find his best players that he could for his style. And that really is impressive. You know, we have a lot of guys here that have been building teams for years, and he's able to come in and take some poorly run CPU team and compete to a Super Bowl and almost win it.
Yeah. How about you, Mike? Do you have anything on Matt?
I would echo that. I mean, Matt built a solid team in Tennessee, arguably coming in with not a great roster and having to kind of retool on the fly. So you could really say he's almost built 2 Super Bowl contending teams in this file between the Jets and the Titans. That's really impressive. So I think it's warranted to be up there at number 1. He's an active user. Again, he contributes. And I think, he deserves it. I think him or Dustin could have been 1, in my opinion. In terms of the rankings, they could be interchangeable, but I think they're both pretty close, and I think that shows in everyone's rankings.
Yeah, I had Matt at number 2 behind Jacques, and it really was a 1A and 2 and 1B between those two. Matt is, if there's anybody that I confer to as far as how to run a league, opinions on difficult matters within the league, or just in general. Him and I were in each other's ear all during the whole user lock fiasco. And so as far as just off the field, Matt is involved. Matt puts out content. He's always looking to talk with other users, talk strategy. He contributes to any discussion in the league. And that's just off the field. In game, I think you guys are both right. He took the Titans and just threw on some Band-Aids and, well, bam, we're in the Super Bowl. And, like, I can't do that. That's really impressive. And and I mean, I think, like you said, we've all been here playing with these files, and he took 2 different teams to Super Bowls and has a ring and is always competing. I mean, he made the playoffs twice with this Titans team, and he's as quality as you get on the field and off the field, and I think he does deserve the number 1 spot. He plays style. He plays a great defense. He plays his offensive style, he's even mentioned it. It's death by 1,000 cuts. He's not gonna always hit you with the deep ball. He's just gonna piece you together, and next thing you know, 6 minutes are off the clock, and he's got 14 points, and you still have 0.
That's a great way to describe it. I mean, low scoring, he grinds it out, and he just plays a solid game, and, you know, he's got that strong defense, and that's how he fights it first and foremost. Yep. And then he'll just kind of put you to bed with his offense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I recall, didn't he have 2 seasons in a row where he was 16-0? And the only reason he lost is because he couldn't make the playoff games?
That sounds familiar.
I could be misremembering.
I think that was the year that Dustin lost to the Bucks.
Yeah, because I remember him making a comment about how he had been on like a 12 or 14 game user streak.
Yep.
Which is just insane to think, you know, not only to have that many wins, but just the way Madden is, you're bound to have a game here or there where things just don't fall in your favor.
100%.
And he still was able to get a bunch of victories despite those inevitabilities.
Yeah. Let's see. Southern Sam says, Matt represented the AFC in the Super Bowl my first year here and seems to have done well with roster construction in the Jets and Oilers, though I've not played either under his control. Do we have any other comments here on Matt from other users?
Austin says 2 different teams, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 win, especially given that second Super Bowl appearance came in the first year of taking over a team that had not yet been blessed or cursed by the touch of another user. The Jets' Super Bowl win in Season 2 is something to behold. Dominating defense and running attack left pretty much everyone bruised. Matt left the team in good hands when Justin took the reins, but the foundation was more than solid. The Oilers may have not come out on top against the rushing juggernaut in San Francisco, but getting there and having such a foothold against the other teams, all combined with an outstanding ability to put together a solid defense, put Matt at 1A. So he had Matt at a 1A and Cody at 1B. Couldn't quite break the tie. Or I guess he broke it, but had them both at 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that concludes our top 16 list. That was really fun to talk about. And we're already, an hour and a half into this, so we'll start to wrap things up here. We'll talk briefly about those who did not make the list. we have coming in at 17, just outside of the top 16. We have one of my favorites, Mike himself, with 147 points. Was barely beat out by Saeed. Mike, I wish you were in this list. I've always enjoyed our games, and you were a consistent pusher for the playoffs. I guess maybe the knock on you is you just didn't make as many deep runs in the postseason or enough playoff appearances, and maybe that's why you weren't higher on other people's lists. But I enjoyed your game. I saw, because we played so much, I saw tangible progress with your roster every single time we played, and you became a better user each year as well. And having Mahomes, I mean, you would just rocket that thing to whoever was deep, and they'd usually come down with it. It was really impressive. And your defenses got stiffer as the years went on. When you had that pass rush, you were really difficult to beat.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
I felt good about my roster at the end, and I feel a little bit snubbed, as I was saying to you guys earlier. I think I have to go talk to Drew and Dustin. I feel a little slighted not being on their list, but that's all the fun in it. I mean,
yeah,
it depends what people rank it as, right? If you're going by skill, maybe not. I rank mine based on current users, and I think I consider myself a pretty active user. Besides, maybe I'm not as active in the chat, but I'm always lurking.
You're always there. People say, I've heard from Mike, I know you're always there, and I see you always kind of in the chat, and you and I are always talking. So I've never considered you not involved. You're just not very talkative.
Yeah, and then from a game standpoint, you said it. Like, I built up my defense. I figured out early on that the Chiefs didn't have much of a defensive foundation that I could work with personally.
Mm-hmm.
So trading Tyreek was kind of a turning point, but then you look after I traded Tyreek and it looked like I had nothing. This year I ended up with every single skill player on my team was at least a superstar or X Factor. So I was pretty happy with what I had in the end. Too bad I couldn't put the consistent play together to maybe make it onto the top 16.
Ty, do you have anything on Mike?
Well, all we had was that one game, and it was unfortunately a little one-sided. I had a lot of plays that sometimes work in my favor and sometimes don't, that did.
Yep.
But it was always fun to watch. I really liked the move that you did with Tyreek. I really wish you would have given me, but I think the giving away the flashy piece to have a strong core was definitely the right move.
Yeah,
I think
tough move, but a good move.
That, they'll make it a little less fun. You don't get the super fast guy to catch, but if there's anything I've learned this Madden is having a solid defensive core, especially in the front, can give you a lot of breathing room, and I really respected that move you made.
Yeah, thanks, Ty.
Dustin writes, always good and got better each season. Some spicy moves in free agency and through the draft saw the team actually get fresher as the file progressed, and would love to have seen what the team was like in a couple more years. I would agree. I mean, I thought last season, before this most recent one, I mean, you knocked me out, and I thought you had a really good chance of making a pretty deep run. And then this year, you came storming back and made the playoffs again. You really did get better each time, and I really enjoyed our games. I felt like they got closer each time we played, and then we started trading games, and then that's how it ended. And I really enjoy how you played in the game, and our talks. As far as I know, you're not super talkative in the chat, but we're always talking via PM, and I know you're invested. I know you like it here, and I'm thrilled you're here too.
Yeah, I love it here. It's a lot of fun. I look forward to the next file and hopefully getting some more consistency.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how you do, because I think you're an up and comer as far as you jumped in and you were kind of in the middle of the pile, and you've only improved, and I like that. As far as you missing the top 16, I understand why, but I would have loved to see you there. Behind you, we have by 1 point my brother Sam, who would have been number 18. Interesting thing about Sam is he is also a unanimous pick. Everyone voted on Sam, and I think that actually hurt him because of how far he fell.
Sim had the one, he had taken a long hiatus, and
Yep.
It takes a while to brush off the rust. And then also the roster, while it had some nice pieces, was really lacking on some parts, where better teams were just able to abuse those weaknesses. But he had some really solid games against some great users. It was just had too many games that snowballed from like turnovers early.
Yep.
But I'm excited to see what he does next year with the experience of this year, and then also a new team to start from the beginning.
Absolutely. Mike, did you play him much at all?
I played a couple times, most recently 2 seasons ago. Yeah, I enjoyed my games against him. Didn't play him much. I didn't have too much interaction with him, but seems like a solid contributor, and he's been around, I think, for the whole file, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I mean, we had close games. He's a great user. Don't know too much beyond that in terms of not being able, having played him too much. But yeah.
He actually, he didn't join. He joined after Rutt left the Lions.
After Rutt, yeah.
So he may have joined like year 3 or 4. I feel like. Yeah, no. I think was it Jordan, when writing on Sam, put it really perfectly. He said Sam seemed to step in and take down the big guys, but then just lose some silly games that you'd think he would have won. I feel like that was Sam. Sam came in and like his first game back beat Cody. And then then he was beating Drew earlier this year, and then he would lose to in games I would think he should have won. And so I think definitely he had a lot of rust to shake off, and I think you're right, he was battling against that roster, and I think he also grew as a Madden player. I watched his game progress, and I have to give him credit because what he pulled off with Vernon as a QB with that 82 throw power or whatever it was really, I mean, he had some guys that would just go up and get it, but what he was able to manage that situation pretty well, all things considered. And I think the reason he falls to this ranking is while he was being unanimously voted on, everyone voted him on near the bottom of the list based on how long he played and his success. He didn't really make a deep playoff run. So I think he kind of deserves to be at number 18, but I think the reason partially that he plummeted was he was always listed as 14, 15, or 16, so he just racked up those points. Yeah, and then number 19, with 155 points, we have Dustin G. And I'll start with him. Dustin is one of our best content creators. Dustin is dutiful with working on his team, and I will also say he contributed so much to like draft projections and draft grading, and just research with the draft. He was great with the draft. Unfortunately, I feel like his team was split into 2 different eras. You had the Presley and all the expensive older receivers, and then you had Chandler and McQueen, and he was just starting to add some really good pieces, but it was just too little too late. And so he never had a playoff berth, and he only had a few user wins. But my goodness, I give that guy credit for being as stubborn and plugging along and developing where he did. I mean, he was really starting to come along here late in the file.
Yeah, I don't. I did an offline franchise, the Dolphins, to just kind of see what it felt like, and I give him credit for sticking through with that because, man, that roster was tough.
Yeah,
and you'd have to. He had to get a lot of those older guys in free agency just to compensate and to catch up with the other rosters. And right now, I feel like he's definitely got a pretty good young crew. If we were to go another year with this, I'd be really interested to see if the Dolphins are one of those teams that become late bloomers. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really liked originally I liked his decision to try to develop Rosen. It never ended up working out, but the potential was there. And I especially like the decision to just gun it for Chandler when that opportunity came there.
Right.
And they were the closest they've been to getting in the playoffs this year, I believe, with that.
Yeah, he was definitely creeping up. He had a 10-6 record this year, which is I think his best. And he just missed the playoffs, losing out to the Chiefs in a tie. So well done, Mike. But you also squashed his only playoff appearance.
Yeah, I think that came down to our week 1 matchup. We played week 1 or 2. I don't remember which one I played you in, but I played Dustin early on.
Yep.
And yeah, it went in my favor. I found he's really concentrated on building that roster, and as you said, Ty, commend him on keeping strong and trying to like pull through with that Dolphins team that isn't in great shape in 2020. So give him kudos there, and I think, as you said, he had a good year this year. Too bad he didn't make the playoffs. I mean, at his expense for me, but I think he's a solid user, solid contributor, and just outside the list.
Yeah. Yep. I think he doesn't belong in the top 16 based on who's above him, but I'm thrilled he's a part of our league, and I like having him around. He's produced his own podcasts, and he's great for the content, great for the input. And I've played him. He beat me. He's had some good games here and there. It just hasn't been enough, and he hasn't put it all together at the same time. And I'll just skim through the last 3 that are on this list. At number 20, we had Andy, who received just 1 vote. So he had 122 points, which would have placed him on the top 16 above Lynn at number 12. However, with just 1 vote, we didn't feel like he belonged in the top 16. He didn't even finish a whole season here, but based on reputation, he did receive a vote, so we wanted to include him. At 21 with 135 points, we had Will, who played, I think, maybe just barely 2 seasons or less. He had 4 votes, but again, just not enough there. Didn't really make a lot of noise in the file, but is... it's difficult for me to say anything nice about this man, but I'm glad he filled a hole when there was a hole. And at 22, we have Dana, who received 126 points, played for 3 seasons, and he received 1 vote. Again, didn't really make much noise in the file itself, kind of left on weird terms. And though he did play 3 seasons, one could argue he destroyed his roster, unfortunately, and so he was not considered. So he's the last one on the list. But he did receive 1 vote, and the 1 vote came from Drew, which was just a nice gesture from him. So we will leave it open now. Do you guys, before we close tonight, do you have any final thoughts on this list? Any other comments you wanted to make before we adjourn the top 16 until the end of next file?
Well, I just find it, I don't know, this list is really interesting because it's not necessarily a power ranking. It's not necessarily let's all get together and agree on a top 16 or anything. It's just the overall opinion of everyone for their own reasons. Creating this list makes it really interesting. I can see some guys thinking they're too high, some thinking they're too low. And really, I mean, it's just like the NFL top 100 players, everyone has their own reasoning for their votes.
Yep.
And that's just something to consider when thinking about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. It's a good point. It's not a popularity it's not a power rankings, and it's not even a popularity contest. It's such a fusion of everything.
Yeah,
exactly. It's fun. I think it creates a little bit of it'll create a discussion topic as we move into Madden 21, and I'm sure there'll be some potential debates over some people's lists and who landed where.
Yep.
I think that's exciting, and maybe create a little bit of rivalry or put a chip on someone's shoulder going into the new file.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you got those 3, Mike, Sam, and Dustin underneath there that are all confirmed to be back for next file. And I think you guys definitely are in positions to make a case to be in the top 16. Again, without the Saeeds and involved, and who knows who else. Do you guys have any issues with the rankings, any personal preferences? Like, I know, Mike, you said you'd like to see yourself in the top 16. Where do you think you fall in this list, if not 17?
Honestly, probably 16.
16?
I mean, that's just based on what I would merit, what I made my list on. As we said, people have their different reasons, whether it's play or content. I just based mine on, I think who was around longer or current even.
Yep.
So based on those merits, I probably put myself there. But in terms of play, I think I'm probably around 17. I think that's fair. In that tier with Dustin, and Sam. So
Yep.
I think that's fair skill-wise for now, but I do think I've improved, and I think I know how to build a roster to especially compete in this league now. So I look forward to 21 and improving that ranking.
Yeah, and I think I think I had you at 13 in mind. I think you belong. I think you deserve to be closer to Lynn than you are, just based on that rivalry. Ty, how do you feel about your ranking at 7?
I can't hate it. Honestly, I think I look at all the people above me, and they're all players that either we would go neck and neck with, or they would just crush me.
Yep.
And I'll take top half gladly.
Yeah. When I put this thing together, I definitely thought you deserved in that not top quadrant, but next one down, just based on what you were able to accomplish with that team. And my goodness, you want to talk about availability and content in the chat? I mean, you're always in there when you're awake and contributing and talking, and you and I are always going back and forth in there, and it's just great. And I would say when I built this, when I first considered having this list and asking people for submissions, I kind of mentally thought I'd be at 8, and that's kind of where I sat. I think that's where I belong. It's like I always feel like I have enough to get to the playoffs, maybe even win some playoff games, but maybe one day I'll win that Super Bowl. So who knows? It definitely keeps me hungry every year, and I guess that's probably a good thing. If I get content, I don't know if I'd be as interested.
The hunt for that ring.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Well, guys, thank you so much for giving me like 2 hours of your day in the evening or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I really appreciate you guys being here and helping contribute into the discussion, as well as covering for me when I had to go for a few minutes. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this and being a part of this file as well.
Of course. And just a heads up, after the Super Bowl, I will be putting together to get votes for Hall of Fame player classes
from
everybody. I haven't quite figured out the way I'm going to do it yet, but after the Super Bowl, I should be going to everybody and be getting submissions for players that they would want to vote in, and at the end we can have a league-wide vote.
That'll be fantastic.
Love that.
Yeah, Mike, how many TVs do you have mounted at this moment?
You know what? So, 2. Because we've got a house, it's much more spread out now, right?
Yeah.
We've only got the 2 in the basement, and mainly that's because with the NHL playoffs right now, we only need 2 at any one time.
We only need 2.
So
but when we need 5, by God, we have them.
I think we're up to 6 total in the house now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Maybe I'll just put a wall of TVs down there eventually.
I love it. I mean, you realize that in one of your few contributions in the chat, that's become what you're known for at this point, and it's something awesome.
Oh, that's right. I love it.
Yep. So this is we'll close now just to give you guys a preview for next week's episode. I won't reveal our guest just yet, but we will be discussing and revealing the new divisions. If you're paying attention, this week I will be asking everyone to submit their top 3 teams for who they'd like to play in the next file. And so we'll be revealing the divisions and we'll be talking about the competition that will await us, especially considering now that we have this top 16 nailed down. And I'll be posting that on Thursday the 13th.
Yeah.
I thought it's Thursday all day. I don't know why. So yeah, thank you guys for being a part of this, and thank you, Mike, for being our guest tonight and joining us. All right, well, enjoy your evening and happy Madden.
Peace out.
Peace.